Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka Lauren33. I am back here tonight with the Legit Shoot podcast, here with your Night 1 WrestleMania 37 review and results. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's taking a lot for me to do this review, mentally and physically. The show ended around 11:45 Eastern time. I am recording this at 2 a.m. All right. There's been a lot going through my head, especially, of course, when it came to the main event with Sasha and Bianca. So much to talk about. We've been going through this for months. I have been very passionate about why Sasha should win this match. All right. And after a lot of thought, talking to some people about the matter, I'm going to go in depth on my thoughts for the match. Where do they go from here? The legacy of this match. So much to talk about. Also, man, we're going to talk about WrestleMania as a whole and why WrestleMania needs to stay 2 nights for the foreseeable future. I know next year in Dallas, they're planning to go back to 1 night, and then Hollywood, and then for the foreseeable future. But I think tonight proved why you need to keep WrestleMania in a 2 night format going forward, man. It's best for everybody involved, the fans, the superstars, everybody, man. Because just imagine if they had done all of the 2 nights of WrestleMania tonight, right? They've given us the 14 matches that were advertised. We would have been sitting at that arena for 5, close to 6 hours, and nobody would have wanted that. It's so much easier to digest WrestleMania as a whole when you split up those 14 matches into 2 separate nights, right? I definitely think night 2 has a better card than night 1, but night 1, I gotta give it props. They did a good job. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre opening the show, even though there was a weather delay, they still did a fabulous job, and I love the outcome. Bad Bunny, a lot of people are calling him the MVP. He did steal the show tonight. I got to give credit to Miz and Morrison for doing their job in the process, but Bad Bunny looked fantastic out there tonight. Cesaro and Seth Rollins, WWE, I hope they realize that they have their next babyface star. And it's a long time coming because we know how good Cesaro is. I've been saying it for years. But I think if WWE truly looks in the mirror and looks at what they have in Cesaro, I feel like by the end of the year, we could be looking at a future Universal or WWE champion. He is that over as a babyface. And of course, the main event with Sasha and Bianca, so much to talk about with that, all the history they made. And I know a lot of you guys are, and even though I'm not live streaming this review, I know a lot of you guys who are watching this on the premiere or in the comment section. First thing you guys got to put is 0-6, right? But this means so much more than 0-6, and we're going to talk about it here in just a moment. But if you guys are new to the podcast and you guys are watching or listening to me to the first time and you guys like what you hear, make sure to click that red button. All right, this is actually my first podcast in a couple weeks. I didn't do any Raw or SmackDown the last couple weeks because I just needed a break. I wasn't really feeling the shows. Raw and SmackDown have been pretty bad with their build towards WrestleMania. But I don't get it. For some reason, WWE can give us such an awful build for pay-per-views, but then when it comes to the actual show, it's actually decent. Like night 1 as a whole, I enjoyed it. And I actually think night 2 has the chance to be even better just based off the card we have for tomorrow. There was no big surprises tonight. Nothing big or huge happened, right? There was a lot of good wrestling. There was a lot of good moments in the ring. I don't know if WWE has any big, surprises, set up for us for night 2. Like maybe a Becky Lynch return or something like that. I don't know. But still, I gotta give WWE credit for what night 1 was. It was overall a good show, and definitely the vibe and the feeling of having WWE fans back in attendance. I missed that feeling so much. And at the beginning of the show, where Vince McMahon and all the WWE superstars came out to the stage, you could see, that photo of Rhea Ripley crying on stage. That was everybody, man, because the last year has been tough. It has been tough on everyone. COVID has changed our lives in so many ways, And especially as a pro wrestling fan, the most important thing is the fans. They drive everything that happens, and having fans back in the stadium tonight for WrestleMania, even if it's only for this weekend, because I know they're going back to the Thunderdome on Monday. It shows you how valuable fans are to the wrestling industry, and it was such a great feeling. Everybody on that card tonight was motivated because when you saw them on stage and they were all cheering, they like most of those superstars were not in character. They were just being their real life selves. They were so excited just to be in front of fans again, man. It made the show so much better, and it made you realize what we had been missing for so long. We could argue so much about how bad WWE Creative is and, the booking and all the decisions, but still, there is no better feeling of watching wrestling with a live crowd, really. You know, and it's gonna suck on Monday when we go back to virtual crowds, and that's the way it's gonna be going forward. If I was WWE, I would try something at least maybe for I don't know pay-per-views, right? Since they're working down in the Florida area, they should be able to get some arena where they would be able to have limited fans for a pay-per-view. If I was WWE, I would look into that. Even if you can't do it for Raw and SmackDown, at least do it for pay-per-views because hopefully in the next couple months there'll be vaccinations for everybody who wants to take one, and then maybe we can get back to some kind of touring schedule, man. Because tonight, having fans there made this show so much better and so much easier to digest, man. Woof. And this is so much, and we're gonna get into it, but I gotta give WWE credit, man. They did a great job, or a decent job with night one. Really, there's a lot that I'm gonna remember just from night one alone, and I feel like there's gonna be even more to add to that once we get to night two. But as always, thank you guys for joining me on the podcast once again. Thank you to everyone who live tweeted with me tonight during the show. I will say this. I do have a sore throat, so for any of you guys who were expecting me to rant or anything like that, you're not going to get that tonight. You're not going to get that tomorrow. You're probably not going to get that on the Raw review, man. My throat is in a lot of pain right now, really. I don't think it's COVID or anything, but my throat has been really sore the last week. And I have water, and I'm trying my best to manage it, man. But it's really hard for me to talk right now. I kind of just want to get this review done and over with so I can try to get some rest, and hopefully in the morning it'll be better because, like I said, we'll be right back here for night two tomorrow night. But still, man, so apologies for those who want, the super animated Fitz. Man, you're not gonna get it here, or at least not tonight. But still, hopefully you guys are just grateful that you guys are getting a review because you guys have been hitting me up on social media like, Fitz, where's the reviews the last couple of weeks? Well, I'm here tonight, man. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it. I know you guys want me to talk about Sasha, and I'm going to save it for the end of the podcast because that was the main event. Plus, I can talk about that for 30 to 40 minutes. I'm hoping I won't have to, but, you know, I'm, there's just so much to talk about coming out of that match. And trust me, I want to talk about everything else first and get that out of the way. So then when we get to Sasha and Bianca, we can just focus on that because that's going to be the real meat of today's podcast. But let's talk about WrestleMania 37. First off, the stage was absolutely beautiful. It was a simple stage. It wasn't anything too wild, but the set looked beautiful. It was a huge pirate ship, of course, right? You're in Tampa Bay, Buccaneer Stadium, Raymond James Stadium. We're the Super Bowl champs. Part of me was hoping, what if we see like Tom Brady there? I think Tom's on vacation with his family, but it would have been kind of cool if they had like Tom Brady there as a celebrity guest there in his own stadium for WrestleMania. You have all this with Bad Bunny and Logan Paul, right? Why not get Tom Brady? But either way, or Gronk, right? Remember, Gronk was signed to WWE just a couple years ago, and then the contract had to be broken because he decided to go back to playing football. But so, Raymond James Stadium is absolutely beautiful, and I love the big pirate ship. And Under that, you had this like a normal Tynatron set. Still, man, it's a beautiful looking set, and the actual can it's actually pyro, and that was beautiful to see. The vibe coming from the WWE crowd. Yeah, it was all great. It was fantastic, really. The environment was great. The one thing that sucked was the rain. WrestleMania got delayed. It started raining like 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and then right before the show started, right, everybody was getting excited. Vince McMahon came out with the rest of the WWE superstars. Everybody came out, right? No matter if you were performing on night one or night two, everybody came out. You saw Roman wearing a suit. Edge was, taking in all the emotion. Daniel Bryan, all of them. And everybody was excited to be back in front of live fans, right? Seeing the superstars not as their characters, but as themselves, their real life personalities, taking in that moment just to, appreciate being back in front of fans. It was great. And, Vince came out, he gave a speech of, very short speech about, how long it had been since, superstars were in attendance, or not superstars, fans were in attendance, and how, he was grateful to everybody that made it possible for WrestleMania to be back in business. And, like I said, it's so hard to swallow, man. I'm sorry if it's annoying. I'm trying my best to get through the podcast, man, but my throat really hurts. But like I was saying, sorry. Uh, but yeah, like I was saying, uh, so Vince. So as much, yeah, for as much as I get on Vince, this is gonna be such a tough podcast to do. As much as I get on Vince all the time, and I call him out of touch, and I say that he needs to go, and trust me, I still believe in all of those things. Vince has to go. His time has come. You know, I felt happy, seeing him out there, and thanking everybody for allowing WrestleMania to get back in business, because for as much as we get on Vince creatively, from a business side, the guy's a genius. WWE's making more money than they ever had before. Remember, that's what you guys got to remember. The reason why WWE's not in danger for the foreseeable future is because of how much money they're making from USA Network, Fox, Peacock, all that stuff. Plus, the WWE shop and all their endorsement deals, everything like that. So that's the reason why Vince can do whatever he wants creatively, no matter how much we complain about it, right? And from a business side, I know it had to be stressful for him and his team to try to get everything done. Remember, a couple months ago, we didn't know there was going to be a WrestleMania in front of fans. We had no idea. But here we are. There is a WrestleMania in front of fans, and even though it was not full capacity, it was only about 45,000. That's still a hell of a lot of people. Still, it still felt like WrestleMania, if that makes sense. And I got to give him credit for everything. And I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for everyone in that company that they were able to pull up a successful WrestleMania. Especially when a couple months ago we thought that, it might not even be possible, right? And we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel here with COVID, because I feel like now, especially having a big event like this, I feel like it's just a matter of time till things start opening back up as, vaccinations roll out, and then slowly we can get back to, some type of normal life, or the new normal, or whatever God has planned for us. So, basically, right as WrestleMania was beginning, the show got delayed because there was a little bit of lightning in the area. So they had the fans go shelter out of the arena in the concrete area, and then about, I would say, 15, 20 minutes later, everybody else was able to get back to their seats. During this time, they just, interviewed the superstars backstage, gave their thoughts about their matches, giving their chances, to give some more promos. So it was anything serious. Plus, remember, it's been like a year and a half, right? It's been forever since we had fans. I feel like people were willing to wait 15 to 20 minutes for the lightning to pass by so we could get the full show before instead of complaining about lightning, Like, come on. Like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have started the show, right? Started with the WWE Championship match and then have to pause it, or after the match pause the show completely just have people shelter in place? So I gotta give WWE credit. I gotta give them credit for not fully starting the show until the Lightning had passed, and that they could proceed with the fully scheduled show. But like most of you guys knew, Sasha and Bianca was going to be the main event, and Drew and Bobby Lashley was going to open the show. And basically, Drew had the first entrance of the night, and he did get a pretty good pop, but there were some boos for him. A lot of us knew that there were going to be boos from him because, not because people don't like Drew McIntyre, but because of how much people like Bobby Lashley, and they believe Lashley deserved this moment, which he did. And Drew got a pop, and what's crazy is the fire. You can see when he puts the sword in the ground, right? The fire pyro. No matter where you're sitting in the arena, you could feel that heat. It reminds me of like the Undertaker back in the day when his WrestleMania entrances with the fire going off everywhere. But for the most part, Drew, I would say it was like 75% cheers, 25% boos for Drew, right? Because Lashley got a massive pop. And clearly, it felt like Bobby was the babyface in this match. And Bobby didn't even really work like a heel. He worked more like a tweener, right? He was also kind of pandering to the crowd a little bit. But this was a fantastic opening to WrestleMania. We knew these two were going to go at it hard, and I would say this match was probably better than the match they had at Backlash last year for the WWE Championship. This was, a fantastic way to open up the show. It was the WWE Championship, so we knew it had pressure, but you also have to remember it had the pressure of being the first match. The first match, not only on a WrestleMania card, being for the WWE Championship, but being the first match in front of a live crowd for WWE since that SmackDown, the last SmackDown in Boston, right before the pandemic began. So clearly, these two went at it. They went at each other hard, hitting each other left and right. The blows, the chops, everything about this felt great. They were really going at it. They weren't trying to fake anything. So, McIntyre hit a Northern Light suplex for a 2 count. Lastly, then hit a nasty spine buster, but couldn't get the pinfall. Then McIntyre hit a reverse Alabama slam, but Lashley kicked out at 2. Lashley countered a Claymore with a spine buster, but McIntyre was able to get back up. Then we saw McIntyre. I like this spot. McIntyre hit Lashley with 3 Future Shock DDTs in a row, but Lashley kicked out. Then we see. Then we saw MVP pulled Lashley out of the ring because McIntyre did the 3-2-1 Claymore countdown. So then McIntyre took to the sky with a dive over the top rope. So then I love this part right here. McIntyre put Lashley into Kimura lock. So it was kind of like Brock Lesnar. We've been talking a lot about, Lesnar not being with WWE. And I do expect Lesnar to return, and we'll talk about that in just a sec, because I do think, Lesnar will be at SummerSlam fighting for the WWE Championship. All right, so we saw Lashley get to the bottom rope to escape the Kimura lock. MVP then distracted McIntyre to prevent another Claymore, and then Lashley put him into the Hurt Lock. So then this was a struggle because McIntyre, he kept trying to fight out of the Hurt Lock, but Lashley would not lose his grip. And eventually, Drew passed out, and the ref was forced to call it a bell. Lashley retains the WWE Championship. This was a shock, even though it was a shock to me, even though I picked Lashley to win the match, right? Because you're thinking it's the first match of the night, right? You want to start off hot, especially Drew. This was the moment Drew was supposed to get last year. Remember, it was supposed to be last year in this same very stadium, in Raymond James Stadium against Brock Lesnar in the main event. It was supposed to be McIntyre beating Lesnar in front of that same crowd tonight, and getting his big moment. So everyone was assuming, and that was the main reason why McIntyre was getting the boos. Everyone was assuming that they were gonna do Lashley dirty, and McIntyre was gonna get his moment tonight, right? I'm very surprised they didn't do that. I'm very surprised that McIntyre didn't even hit a single Claymore kick the entire match. I thought McIntyre would at least hit one, and then Lashley would probably kick out of it. But no, McIntyre didn't hit no Claymore kick the entire night. And the fact that McIntyre just passed out, this was the finish I wanted for Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. I wanted Sasha to put Bianca in the bank statement using the hair whip, and then Bianca just pass out that way. And we'll get to Sasha and Bianca a little bit later, but I'm very surprised that they actually did that ending here with Lashley and McIntyre. It's 100% the correct outcome. All right, I don't want anybody to say otherwise. This was 100% what should have happened. Lashley beating McIntyre, especially Lashley beating McIntyre clean, is the right decision, right? I'm going to tell you guys what's next for McIntyre, and if you guys have been listening to the podcast, right, it shouldn't be a surprise. What does WWE usually do after WrestleMania every year? They usually do a superstar shakeup a couple weeks after Mania. I think that's what's about to happen here in the next couple weeks. Clearly now, McIntyre, this was basically McIntyre's rematch for the WWE Championship that he lost at the Elimination Chamber, and he lost clean. There was no interference. There was no fuck finish. He lost clean as the babyface. He passed out, right? So McIntyre shouldn't be getting a rematch. And, McIntyre has basically been in the WWE Championship scene since last year, since he won the Royal Rumble. So he spent the last year and a half in the WWE Championship scene. It's clearly Lashley's time, just like Lashley said in his promos. So what do you do with McIntyre? It's time that McIntyre gets a new change of scenery. He's been on Raw since he moved up from NXT, which was, 2-3 years ago now? Right? That was 2018, I believe, when he debuted, or, when he emerged back on Raw with Dolph Ziggler. I think it was 2018. Enough time has passed, and I think it's time for Drew to get a new change of scenery. He's had, multiple WWE Championship runs in the last year. He's faced basically everybody on the roster. He's beaten basically everybody on the roster. And I think it would be a really good change of scenery to put him on SmackDown, right? I don't see Roman Reigns switching brands, and I know WWE would love to continue that storyline from Survivor Series of last year and do another McIntyre and Roman Reigns match, right? Like I said, I don't think Roman's walking out of Mania as the Universal Champion, but at the time of this podcast, he still is the Universal Champion. So I definitely think, McIntyre, you move him over to SmackDown, definitely you can continue that Roman feud. Plus, you can do Drew versus Rollins. Those two have had fantastic chemistry in the past, right? And especially now that Seth's a heel, if you want, you can do Drew versus Seth again. You can do Drew versus Edge, which originally should have been the match, I believe, for WrestleMania, but still no complaints, really, especially after what we got with Drew and Lashley tonight. You can do Drew versus Bryan, right? You can do Drew versus Big E, Drew versus Apollo Crews. There's a whole list of, matches you can do with Drew on SmackDown, presuming that they keep the roster the same for the most part. So definitely, I think Drew's going to get moved to SmackDown. You're going to see him going after the Universal Championship now. And then lastly, clearly on Raw, he's going to be the dominant WWE title, or WWE champion. And I don't see anybody taking that championship off of him. So assuming that we see WWE back having some kind of touring schedule where they have actual fans in the arena, I think what happens next is, I think Lashley versus Lesnar, the dream match we've all been waiting for. And now that match is going to have even more hype after seeing what Lashley and McIntyre did tonight. I think that's the match you should be planning right now for SummerSlam, right? I don't know if WWE's going to do SummerSlam in Boston to make up for them not being able to do it in Boston last year because of COVID. But either way, Lashley versus Lesnar, that's what you should be planning for SummerSlam this August. That's the next big WWE Championship match. You can just have Lashley run through opponents through the summer. If you want, you can maybe do, I guess, Lashley versus Strowman again. I would still want to see a legit Lashley versus Keith Lee feud. If Keith Lee does return, you could always do Lashley versus Sheamus, and there's other people that they're just not coming to mind, but you can make opponents for Lashley, the face throughout the summer and make him into a dominant WWE champion until Lesnar returns later in the summer for SummerSlam. But either way, really good opening to the show. Really happy that Lashley got the win. It's kind of symbolic because you look at it with Bianca winning the main event and Lashley winning to begin the show, man. From a historical and I guess you could say, color perspective, right? Those two African American superstars winning the open and close the show of WrestleMania. It's historic, very historic. So really happy with the way the show opened tonight with Lashley retaining. All right, next up we had the tag team turmoil match, right? Number one contender for the women's tag team championship. The winners would face Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax tomorrow night on night two. And I'll say this: I'm happy that the women's tag titles are finally getting a focus, right? You actually have a little bit, somewhat of a division now. I don't know if this is going to be, realizing that they needed a division, especially that now that you're no longer going to have those titles defended in NXT because NXT has their own set of women's tag team championships. All right, but still, you still had this match tonight. Lana and Naomi kicked it up. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't great or anything. This was probably the worst thing on the card, right? And instead of, keeping up, with the excitement of how the show opened, this kind of calmed everybody down. But, Lana and Naomi, and here's the thing. I see a lot of people kind of disappointed for Naomi, right? I'm not. Yes, I want to see Naomi fight for the Raw Women's Championship, and maybe we'll see that throughout the summer. But the thing about it is, Naomi has multiple WrestleMania moments. Like, you guys talk about Sasha Banks now being 0-6. Naomi won the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 33, and then she won the Women's Battle Royal, right? The Mae Young Classic Battle Royal the next year at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, the same match that Sasha and Bayley were in. So I don't really feel that bad for Naomi when it comes to WrestleMania because Naomi's had WrestleMania moments. She won the SmackDown Women's title in her hometown. Like, come on, would I have wanted to see, I guess, Naomi last a little bit long in the match? Because she did get a huge pop. She is one of the more popular female superstars. Sure, but the thing about it is I don't really care about Lana. So it's like, 50-50 at the end of the day. But they went up against Mella and Billie Kay. Remember, Mella and Billie Kay were the last ones ended to this match. It was supposed to be only 4 teams, but it was 5 teams. I kind of thought it was more likely that it would be like Mella and Bayley, but Bayley instead, she just was hanging around backstage talking with the legends all night. So maybe they have something planned for Bayley on night 2. We'll see. But, yeah, we'll see. But, there was an illegal assist here from Carmella, and Billie Kay got the pin over Naomi. I know that's going to get some people really pissed off. It was just whatever to me, really. And then the Riot Squad came out next. You guys know I've been very, very high on the Riot Squad. I'm still hoping that one of these days they get their moment, because it still doesn't make any sense to me, especially with how long the women's tag team titles have been introduced. And after all these years, the Riot Squad still haven't won those titles at least once. Still. And at this point, I'm just asking myself, will the Riot Squad ever get their moment? Like, will they ever get a moment? I don't know. But, the Riot Squad, they came out hot. And we saw here near the end, the referee caught Melo trying to cheat again, but, the ref stopped it. And, Riot and Morgan were able to recover, and they'd hit a double-team finisher for the win. So then Carmella hit Liv Morgan with a quick super kick before leaving. So then Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose came out as the 4th team. There was actually a funny botch. Mandy Rose actually slipped during her entrance. She didn't it looked like she didn't tweak her ankle, but I wouldn't be surprised if she sprained it a little bit. It was because the stage was still a little bit wet because of the rain, and it looked like WWE hadn't really cleaned up the stage all the way fully yet. But still, it is what it is. And this wasn't anything special either. Morgan rolled up Rose after she hit a swanton bomb. So Morgan rolled up Rose and then got the pin. And basically, at first, the announcer, said that the Riot Squad had been eliminated, but it was actually Natalya and Tamina, and he corrected himself a couple moments later. All right, or not Natalya and Tamina. It was actually Brooke and Morgan who had got eliminated. But anyway, Natalya and Tamina came out. They didn't have matching attire, so I was like, huh, what's up with that? Because the last couple weeks on SmackDown, they've had matching attire. But Morgan went to pin Natty right away with a roll-up. Natty kicked out. Then, Natalya and Tamina took over. Then, at the end, Natalya and Tamina hit a heart attack clothesline, with Tamina winning with the splash to get the win. So, congratulations to Natalya and Tamina. We'll see them go up against Jax and Baszler tomorrow night for the tag titles. Like I said, I wish the Riot Squad won. I don't think they'll ever get that moment at this point. But I don't know. Are Natalya and Tamina supposed to be a heel team or a babyface team? Because clearly, Jax and Baszler, they're the heel team. So, I guess that makes Natalya and Tamina the babyface team. And most likely the ones who are going to win the tag titles tomorrow. But, we'll just have to wait and see for tomorrow. But, the match, didn't mean much. It's whatever. Then we had Cesaro and Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins had new music tonight, right? So this is like the third theme song he's had since he's returned. Remember, he had like his Burn It Down. Well, no, he had his normal theme, right? When he returned at the Rumble, he had his normal theme, the Messiah theme, whatever you want to call it. Then he came back, and then he had his normal Burn It Down theme. And then tonight he had a Burning Down remix. So I don't know, but I do like the new theme song. But I don't know why they just keep switching it. I would just rather them just stay as the normal Burn It Down theme song. There was really nothing, no problem with it. But then Cesaro came out. He got a pretty good pop as well. This was really good. I would say this was probably the third best. Yeah, this is probably the third best match of the night, behind Drew and Lashley, and then Sasha and Bianca. This was fantastic. Clearly, this was about Rollins putting Cesaro over, and he did just that. Cesaro went for the swing early, but Seth avoided it. But Cesaro hit him with a huge uppercut. Then he hit him with a drop kick to Rollins on the top rope. Rollins countered with a gut-wrench suplex and then hit the Bucker Bomb for a 2 count. Then he went after Cesaro's arm. Then he hit him with the superplex into the Falcon Arrow for another near fall. Cesaro then cornered him with a flurry of uppercuts before he turned Rollins inside out with a clothesline for a 2 count. Then Rollins countered the swing twice, but then Cesaro was finally able to get him. He did it about 9 revolutions, and I was like, there's no way. It's WrestleMania. We've seen Cesaro do, I believe the record is 28 revolutions. So I was like, he's definitely going to probably do it again here. There's no way he's going to do 9 on the grandest stage of them all, especially when this could be his one and only singles match. You know what I mean? So, excuse me. So, then he went for the sharpshooter, and Rollins broke the sharpshooter by reaching the bottom rope. And then Rollins hit him with a springboard knee and then the sling blade. Then he hit a corkscrew splash for another 2 count. Cesaro then countered the ripcord knee with a neutralizer, but Rollins kicked out at the last second. Then we saw Rollins hit a pedigree, and Rollins doesn't use the pedigree much these days, So definitely hitting the pedigree, that was really good. And then he talked some trash. Then he was talking about how he's a god, whatever. So Ron's doing that delusional heel stuff he's always done. Then he went for a forearm and a kick to the back of the head. Then Cesaro countered the stomp with an uppercut. He swung Rollins around on his shoulder with no hands for a moment, and then he did the Cesaro swing. So Rollins, I mean, Cesaro doing the shoulder swing with no hands, that was scary because that's the spot. If Ron's is at the that's the worst angle, right? If Ron's is just if his body angle is just a little bit in the wrong direction, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble, and then you have serious injuries that can happen and all that. But so the fact that he was able to do that with no problems was really impressive. Then he did the swing 23 times, which was really impressive. You could really see in the crowd that the longer it went, the more they got into it. So for a total, Cesaro did 23 plus 9. He did 32 revolutions tonight on the swing. Absolutely wild. Then he hit the neutralizer and got the victory. You could see the emotion. Like I said, that was a constant theme tonight on the show. The emotion on Cesaro's face. You could tell he was so excited and so adulated for that victory. And I felt so happy for Cesaro, man. It's a long time coming. They said tonight, you know, there was a promo or there was a video package, and I gotta say, WWE, they make fantastic video packages. I know I've said before, but the video packages tonight, especially for Cesaro and Rollins and Sasha Bianca, those two video packages were fantastic. Uh, in the video package, it looked like Stephanie McMahon was the voiceover. It sounded like Stephanie McMahon, and they talked about how Cesaro had been in WrestleMania or not WrestleMania, had been in WWE for 10 years, and this was his first singles match. Do you want a guy like that on top? No. So basically, it was like Rollins doing his own like presidential campaign message, and at the end, Rollins was like, "This was definitely not paid for by Seth Rollins and all that," and it was hilarious. You know, so this thing Cesaro all happy because this was his WrestleMania moment. Very very happy for him. He was celebrating with the crowd, and my boy Anthony texted me, and I agree with him. Cesaro, he needs to be put in the main event scene. Him and Biggie, I believe they need to be put in the main event scene. I wouldn't be surprised if Cesaro was to get moved to Monday Night Raw in the shakeup, and maybe we see him. Like, I would love to see Cesaro versus Bobby Lashley. I feel like that's a match I would absolutely steal the show at one of these summer pay per views, like Money in the Bank or Backlash. You know, WWE needs to realize that there is money in Cesaro as a top babyface star. There always has been, right? He's always been a guy that can give you a 5-star, classic at the snap of his fingers. And I hope WWE realize, because that was the whole point of this. This was all about Rollins putting Cesaro over. Rollins didn't need the victory tonight. He's had his WrestleMania moments, right? He's won the Universal. He's won the WWE. He's won the IC title. He's had great matches. I don't think Rollins has ever had a bad match on the WrestleMania stage. Maybe outside of the match he had with when he was still in the Shield, when they faced, I think, the New Age Outlaws at WrestleMania 30. But other than that, in terms of Rollins, when he's been a singles wrestler since, past the Shield, I don't think Rollins has ever had a bad WrestleMania match. You think about it, his match with Randy Orton, that was great, right? Known as probably the greatest RKO Randy Orton's ever done. You have the year after that, I think, what was that? WrestleMania 30, that was 32? Oh no, Rollins did perform at that WrestleMania. All right, I forgot. But WrestleMania 31 with the catch in, WrestleMania 33 with Triple H, that was a great match. He won. Then you have WrestleMania 34 when he won the IC title. That was a great triple threat match to open the show with him, Finn Balor, and The Miz. Then at WrestleMania 35, he had the win against Brock Lesnar. That was a great way to open the show. And then last year with Kevin Owens at the Performance Center, that's, some people argue, that may have been the best match out of that whole weekend if you take out the cinematic matches. And then tonight with Cesaro's, like, Rollins is fantastic when it comes to WrestleMania, fantastic, and he always leaves his heart in the ring. And definitely, man, Rollins has nothing to be ashamed about tonight. He's gonna be right back in the title contention, right back. I know he's been talking about him wanting to face Roman again. Rollins versus Bryan, that's still a dream feud. Rollins versus Edge, that's a dream match right there. Maybe they continue the feud with Cesaro, even though I think, they pretty much told the story they needed to and they should just move on. But still, there's a lot planned for Rollins going forward. I definitely see him being thrusted into that, championship discussion. Like I said, SmackDown has the potential to have a fantastic main event scene, and especially with the shakeup, it could just get even better, especially if McIntyre is going to be coming to SmackDown. But there's a lot to be hyped about on the SmackDown side of things, especially when it comes to the main event scene. But fantastic match with Cesaro and Rollins. It's time for WWE to capitalize on Cesaro's potential. Time I want to see him now fighting in that main event scene. Or, he deserves to be in there. He proved that tonight. And WWE has money waiting to happen here with Cesaro if they want to continue this push. So hopefully that's what they do. Great match with those two tonight. Next up, we had the New Day defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against AJ Styles and Almas. This was another match that had a terrible build, right? I ranted about this the last couple weeks ago, uh, especially, right? Remember, but these two were playing Pictionary. They're playing Pictionary and charades on Monday Night Raw. The whole story here, of course, was that the New Day, they've been a team now for what, 5, 6, 7 years now, 11-time tag team champions. And AJ and Almas, right, as great as AJ Styles is, Almas has never even had a WWE match, and he's making his debut on the grandest stage in them all. So, what Almas's, uh, the pressure, right? His debut, with the pressure of Almas's debut and him teaming with AJ Styles and them not having that chemistry, would it be enough for them to overcome one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history in the New Day? And it was. First off, what was better than anything in this match itself was the introduction from Big E. Big E came out, and remember, Big E is still a member of the New Day, remember. He was drafted to SmackDown as a singles competitor, but he's still aligned with the New Day. It's just that they're on opposite shows. And we all know eventually, right, the Big E and the New Day, they'll reunite. We could see that as soon as the Superstar shakeup, right? The New Day lost tonight, so I wouldn't be surprised if WWE wanted to bring the New Day back to SmackDown, right, and reunite those two with Big E. Especially SmackDown's tag team division right now isn't that bad. It's way better than Raw. But I don't know, because remember, you take the New Day off of Monday Night Raw, there is absolutely no division on there, so who knows? But still, Big E did the normal New Day intro, and to hear that intro with a crowd, man, that felt fantastic. I know there's not everybody that loves Big E's intro, but I feel like almost all of us would agree. Hearing Big E say, "Oh, Tampa!" Remember, that is Big E's hometown. So I expect Big E to get a huge reception tomorrow night. I know his theme's going to be played by, I forget the artist, but I expect big things for Big E tomorrow night. But they hear the electric from Biggie. Biggie say, "Oh, Tampa, don't you dare be sour. Clap for your world famous 11-time champs and feel the power." You could hear the crowd. They were into it because it had been so long since they had heard it live. And the thing about it is, Biggie hasn't even done it, really, in months. I don't even think he did it in the Performance Center when he still was with the New Day. I think if I'm correct, they just played the New Day's music and they would come out. So I know they had to feel special for Big E. I know that they feel special for the crowd. The New Day came out, right? Big E wasn't wearing matching gear with them, clearly, because this wasn't his match, right? He wasn't wrestling tonight, but he fist bumped his teammates and wished them good luck. So AJ came out with Almas. Right, I think AJ had like a Yankees attire tonight. I don't know if I'm right, but it looked like it was Yankees print stripes attire he was rocking. And almost came out in like just like a black kind of like tracksuit look. It wasn't anything special, but Still, clearly, the big thing in this match was protecting Almas. All right, protecting Almas. Uh, excuse me. Basically, so Styles took control early, but Kingston exchanged encounters. You know what was really cool is you had Xavier on the outside doing the trombone, and hearing the crowd react to that felt so good. That was good. So basically, Woods yelled that we're cutting the ring in half. Like literally, they cut the ring in half because they didn't want Styles to have any way to get to his partner, and it was kind of weird because it was kind of like the crowd was chanting for Almas. Everybody, that's the big thing. That was the big attraction here, right? Everybody wanted to see how Almas was gonna do. You know how great AJ is. You know Kofi Kingston's great. You know New Day or Xavier can hold his own with anybody. But what was Almas gonna bring? That's the big attraction. Plus AJ was basically at a 2-on-1 handicap for about I would say 60% of this match, and as good as AJ is, right, it's still a 2-on-1 handicap really, because they cut the ring in half. So it was almost like it felt like AJ was the babyface here, you know. But finally, AJ was eventually able to tag in Almas, and it was like at that moment, Xavier knew he was screwed. He knew there was absolutely nothing he could do at that moment. He was screwed, right? He tried to get in a few kicks here, but the kicks had no impact on Almas. He looked at both members of the New Day and then just destroyed them, throwing them across the ring. For the most part, Almas looked good. He didn't do any special moves. I will say this, he was a little bit slow because every time he would do a move, he would just smile. He would have like a heinous smile on his face. But it did feel a little bit like almost had to think about what move he had to do next. And if that's true, he got to get better on that because at least to me, it was noticeable. But still, he looked pretty good. He hit a huge slam. It reminded me a lot of the Great Khali. But after that, he pinned him with one foot to win and get the title. So it wasn't a controversial finish, and not much. We didn't see no trouble in paradise. We didn't see any midnight hour. We didn't see no phenomenal forearm, no styles clash. It was more once Almas tagged in, it was just an Almas showcase. He dominated from there, and that was it. So it didn't really have much of that crazy factor. People were cheering for Almas. Almas and Styles really felt like the baby faces here. But still, it does end in the most anticlimactic way, right? It didn't have that huge finish that you were expecting for. But either way, Almas and Styles are the new Raw Tag Team Champions. And, AJ celebrated on Almas' shoulders, which was a cool visual, right? And Almas look good. So currently, what's gonna happen pretty much going forward is, AJ's gonna be the one that takes most of the bumps. He's gonna take the punishment because he's that good at it, right? And then Almas will be the guy who comes in to do the heavy lifting, wins the matches with his big moves and his big, structure and frame and all that. And that's how it's gonna be. So we'll see. It's just that my thing is, there's really no division on Raw. SmackDown, like I said, they're working on their division, but Raw doesn't have any division at the moment. So we'll see if that changes with the Superstar Shakeup. But for right now, Styles and Almas are the new Raw Tag Team Champions. You know, I don't really have too. I'm not mad about it really because New Day, they've had their moments, right? They're 11-time tag champs for a reason, and they'll probably win another tag team title at some point this year, no matter if it's on Raw or SmackDown. So it's like whatever to them at this point. You know what I mean? They're used to this feeling already. This was more about AJ and Almas more specifically, and we'll see, especially going to Raw in the next couple of days, we'll see what's next for this team. Maybe they do a rematch with the New Day. Maybe they see another team. Maybe they just hang out for a couple weeks. We'll just have to wait and see. But not bad. This was anything special, but wasn't bad. Next up, we had Shane McMahon for versus Braun Strowman in a steel cage match, and like I said, this was another example of a build that had been horrific, a build that had been horrific, but at the end of the day, it wasn't all right. The match itself wasn't all right, awful, right? Remember, this is a storyline that was all centered about Shane thinking Braun was stupid. That's what. Remember, that was what this whole feud was about. And like I said, it is stupid at the end of the day, right? That's what it was all about. And basically, as Strowman came to the ring, Shane was first and held the door of the steel cage closed so that Strowman could not get in. Out of nowhere, Elias and Jason Riker started attacking Braun with chairs at ringside. So, as the match started, Shane then took a chair that he was given by Elias, and then Shane had the early advantage in this match, right? He tried to escape through the door, but Strowman stopped him, and then he tried coming to the cage, but this was dumb. Shane legit had the match won. He was on the other side of the cage, and he was halfway down, and all he had to do was jump. All he had to do was jump. But he stood there taking his sweet time. You could clearly see he was waiting for Braun Strowman to recover, right? And that's the main reason why he didn't move. I just don't like those spots because it makes wrestling look way more scripted than it should be. And I'm just like, come on, like you guys know better than that. So after Strowman recovered, he actually like tore up like a piece of the sheet metal from the top of the cage. I don't know how he did it, but then he dragged Shane back in. Shane did do the coast to coast, of course, his signature. It's honestly whenever I see it now, it's like whatever because he does it every single match. It doesn't matter if it's like Survivor Series, no matter if it's WrestleMania or just a normal show. He does it every single match. So at some point, it's just like cool. It's a cool move, but it's like we know you're gonna do it. We're just, I saw it coming from a mile away. Wasn't anything special. Uh, so then we saw Elias and Riker tried to. We saw Elias and Riker. They tried to climb the fence to get in the ring to help Shane out, but the monster among men hit the cage and sent them crashing to the floor. That was the last we would see from those two. So then Shane hit Braun with a toolbox, and then he climbed over top of the cage again. But then Strowman trapped one of his hands against the cage. Once again, stupid. Then he ripped the cage wall down, pulled McMahon back into the ring. Then they ended up standing on the top of the cage where Strowman threw McMahon all the way down. That was a pretty impressive spot. It was just like, the only thing is, I gotta give credit to Shane for selling it. The only thing is, Braun could have easily just climbed down the cage and won the match this way. After, throwing, McMahon off the cage, was, like I said, was a crazy bump. You know, Strowman decides, all right, I'm going to inflict more punishment. It's just like, it's kind of dumb. But afterwards, Strowman gets down from the cage, hit him with a running power slam for emphasis, and gets the win. So the steel cage match itself wasn't special. I was never a fan of the stipulation. I was never a fan of the feud to begin with. You guys know that. It was just like, whatever to me. But, either way, uh, Strowman gets the win. So where does Strowman go from here? If they want, they could do Strowman versus Lashley again, even though we've seen that match. I don't know if there's anything more special that those two could do with one another. I doubt it, but I wouldn't be surprised, especially if Drew is getting moved up to SmackDown. You're going to need another top babyface on Raw for now. And with Lashley as the top heel, it kind of makes sense. Strowman, Lashley, unless Keith Lee comes back and he wants to get involved. But, we'll see. But either way, Strowman gets his payback here in a match that wasn't too bad. Yeah, as bad as the feud, has been marketed. But, we'll see. But not bad, not terrible. All right, probably in the like I said, in the show stealing moment, all right, and if I had to give an MVP award to anybody not named Sasha Banks or Bianca Belair, I would have to give it to Bad Bunny. I don't know. You guys know how much I hate these celebrity matches, no matter if it's Floyd Mayweather or if it's, I don't know, Tyson Fury or Cain Velasquez or whoever it may be. I do not like celebrity matches, especially at big events like WrestleMania. Bad Bunny got probably, yeah, definitely, Bad Bunny had the best entrance tonight. He came in on a truck from the outside of the venue into the arena, like straight through the arena. He had a bunch of pyro easily, and the crowd was super hyped for Bad Bunny. Of course, he's one of the most popular music artists in the world. But, you guys know I'm not a fan of these celebrity entrances because it takes away from the main roster superstars who have been there all year. I understand Bad Bunny's a huge wrestling fan, and clearly he had put in a lot of work for this. But you guys know I'm just not a big fan of this. And also, man, you guys know I don't like The Miz. I don't like The Miz. And this whole hippity hop thing had been a joke. This had been a joke. I was happy for Damian Priest because if this match doesn't take place, right, Damian Priest would probably not even be on the card. Damian Priest would have got probably thrown into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and that would be it. So I'm happy Priest got a WrestleMania moment out of this as well. But Bad Bunny, even though I could sit here and talk about how much I didn't like the feud and I wish we didn't get it, I gotta give Bad Bunny credit. This was great. He was spectacular tonight. And part of it goes to Miz and Morrison, because Miz and Morrison did a brilliant job of selling for Bad Bunny, especially on that Canadian destroyer at the end of the match. But, still, uh, this was good. And the thing about it is, what's impressive is, even though Miss Morrison did their job as sellers and helped execute the moves that Bad Bunny was doing on them, the fact that Bad Bunny did most of these moves by himself, Damian Priest was on the outside of the ring just looking in. We didn't really see Damian Priest get involved until like the last, I would say, 5-6 minutes of the match. This was mostly Bad Bunny, and he did a fantastic job here. So getting into it itself, so Miz and Morrison, they came out to the ring by a group of figures dressed in bunny suits, right? And it was like you could tell this was cheap because you could see that the ears on the bunny suits were actually falling off left and right, and they actually performed on the I forget what hip hop pop, whatever you want to call it, which was cringe in itself, right? And then Bad Bunny, of course, we already talked about it. He came out on the big rig, and Priest had his own entrance as well. I did like how the match started. Miz didn't want to fight Priest. He wanted to fight Bad Bunny. And this was about Bad Bunny and the Miz, really. So, I kind of like how they stayed true to the story there. You know, so then he came in and decked the Miz. This caught the Miz off guard, of course. And then Miz focused and took control. We saw Bad Bunny. He countered with a hip toss and then hit an arm drag that sent Miz out of the ring. He then went for a roll up. Actually, like Bad Bunny was putting out all the stops here. Uh, and Matt, you could see it was very surprising to the Miz, who no one, like him or hate him. He's a ring veteran, right? He's a 15-year ring veteran, two-time Grand Slam champion. And here you have this rapper on the grandest stage in the mall, right? WrestleMania, and he's going move for move with you. So, uh, then we see Bad Bunny hit him with a shoulder thrust. Uh, And then we saw Bad Bunny. He went for a corner splash, but then Morrison was able to counter them. We saw Buddy. He hit him with a DDT out of nowhere to give him a chance to tag Priest in. So Priest got the heart tag, and when Priest came in, everybody was hyped because, like I said, Bad Bunny worked basically the entire match. He worked the first, I think it was 8, 9, 10 minutes. And then when Priest got the hot tag, especially this being his first WrestleMania, the crowd was very excited. He ran through Miz and Morrison like a bulldozer. He and Bad Bunny hit, Falcon arrows at the same time, which looked really good. Especially, Bad Bunny, he's not that big. So the fact that he was able to get up Miz clean like that, man, you could tell he's been in the gym. Then, pretty, the biggest spot here, the Canadian Destroyer on the outside. A lot of it was Morrison, right? Because, Morrison has to make himself light just for, Bunny to be able to execute the full rotation. But still, in fact is, you don't see many Canadian Destroyers in WWE anyway, right? Especially, knowing how dangerous there is. The fact that they allowed Bad Bunny, a celebrity, to perform a Canadian Destroyer at WrestleMania of all places, right? If, the timing's off, you can break your neck, The fact that they let him do it and he was able to do it cleanly, right, was very impressive. So after that, the Miz's face told the entire story. The Miz was completely shocked. And then, excuse me. So then he helped Priest finish out the Miz with a double team move from the top rope, and then he hit a cross body for the win. So Bad Bunny, Damian Priest get the win here, and especially you guys got to remember this was the second to last match. So at this point in the show, no matter if it's 2 nights or 1 night, this is when you're putting on your biggest matches. So when I saw this match go on this late in the show, I was like, eh. But the fact is, the match delivered and it was enjoyable, And I know, like, tomorrow night for night 2, there's a lot of championship matches on the line. You have the Universal title, you have both mid-card titles. I'm talking about the IC and the US title. You have the Raw Women's Championship. And there might be one other title. I don't know. But still, you have 4 or 5 titles being defended tomorrow. And there was only about 3 titles defended tonight. So, like I said, man, a lot on the line tomorrow night. And the fact that this match delivered as the second to last match on WrestleMania, still crazy. It's something Bad Bunny's gonna remember for the rest of his life. Damian Priest, I don't know. I'm so terrified of the way Damian Priest is being booked. Because my thing is, I feel like the second that Bad Bunny leaves, I don't think we'll see Bad Bunny again. Clearly, the door's open if he ever wants to return, but if Bad Bunny does leave, after WrestleMania, I am nervous that Damian Priest will just, fall into that Keith Lee category, and as the summer months go by, we just will forget about Damian Priest, or I won't forget about Damian Priest. I'm more talking about Vince McMahon, and he'll just become another guy backstage, and then eventually become another NXT guy that WWE wasted potential on. You know what I mean? So, like, I would love to see, let's say Sheamus beats Matt Riddle for the U.S. title. And give me a Damian Priest and Sheamus feud over the summer for the U.S. title. There you go. That's money waiting to happen right there. I would love to see that happen. Big man versus big man, especially with what Sheamus has been doing this year alone. But either way, for what it was, Bad Bunny looked great. Even though I wasn't a fan of this match to begin with, I'm happy that the match worked out. I'm happy that, it was actually decent. It was actually decent. All right, so after this, they did the Hall of Fame induction, where they honored the Hall of Fame people. And then last but not least, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the Smackdown Women's Championship. The match you guys have been waiting for me to talk about for the entire podcast. Where do I even start? Okay, look. Whatever I don't say, I'm going to make another video about this anyway, because it's Sasha and Bianca, because I am, of course, very disappointed that Sasha Banks is no longer the SmackDown Women's Champion. I am very disappointed that she is now 0-6. And I don't want to hear people saying, WrestleMania records don't matter, right? Because they do matter. Right? And after thinking about it, it may not matter as much, especially when it comes to Sasha's legacy because of how great she is. This is just another match to add to her collection of fantastic matches, and it's becoming a super long list. She is easily the most consistent female wrestler in the history of the company. I feel like that's undisputed now, right? Because at the end of the day, Sasha doesn't decide whether she loses or wins. She doesn't get to make that decision. That's Vince McMahon, that's the people backstage. She just goes out there and performs and execute. And I feel like, I've been saying for years now on this podcast that she is the greatest of all time. And yes, I understand. I am biased. I When I come on here and I record the podcast, I'm usually very objective to everything. But when it comes to Sasha Banks, I do have a bias to her. But I always try to back that bias up with facts. And since the WWE draft, really, we've been talking about the idea of Sasha and Bianca happening at WrestleMania. It was one of three things. It was either going to be Sasha versus Bianca, Sasha versus Bianca and Bailey in a triple threat, or Sasha versus Bailey. We got Sasha versus Bianca, and basically we've known that since the Royal Rumble, since Bianca won. It made the most sense for Bianca to go after Sasha. And here we are. Now, all these months later, we have now reached the culmination of all those events. And like I said, one of the reasons why, it took me 2 hours till after the show to start recording the podcast is because I had to think about this. I had to think about everything. The match, the booking, where do we go from here? And I still disagree with the decision. Yes, I understand it's the main event, right, of WrestleMania. People are gonna want to see a title change, and Sasha. I'm still convinced Sasha was never the heel here. She played a tweener for this feud. She never had a complete heel turn. Even Bianca was clearly the more likable babyface, right? And this was about Bianca being getting her crowning moment, but still. I'm convinced Sasha was never a heel in this at all. And you want to send the fans home happy. It still bugs me that Sasha, she's been the most consistent female performer of all time, right? And I also said when the match first ended, it's depressing for me as a Sasha fan, right? For her to go out there and put out on one of the greatest female wrestling matches we've ever seen. Definitely one of the best, if not the best, in the history of WrestleMania. And then still, you're gonna have casual idiots, especially people who texted me, bombard me talking about how Sasha's a loser, she's 0-6, right? This and that. Like I've been bombarded with memes. I've seen it all, and of course it's depressing as a Sasha fan to see that, because that's what the majority of the population is gonna mention for at least the next year, at least the next year. You know, no one really talks about Sasha Banks' title defenses anymore because she's defended the SmackDown Women's Championship multiple times over the last 6 months. But before that, all people kept talking about is how she's never defended a singles title, aka the Raw Women's title, for her first 5 reigns, right? And until Sasha gets that WrestleMania victory, which she should already have multiple at this point in her career, but until she gets that first one, people are going to keep bringing it up. And it's just depressing and it's annoying because this meant so much more than a WrestleMania record. I talk about the WrestleMania record because it's really tiring for me, and especially who knows how tiring it has to be for Sasha to hear that in interviews. I listened to an interview and heard the bump, and one of the people in the bump brought it up, and she shot it down so quick. She was like, what is Bianca's WrestleMania record? Even though that was before the show and before she lost, but still, imagine Sasha having to hear all that negativity all the time. I'm just a podcaster who's a fan of Sasha Banks, right? Imagine Sasha having to deal with that. Sasha knowing how great she is and then having to hear that all the time. Oh, you're 0-6 at WrestleMania. Are you ever going to get the big one, right? Because it's clear that WWE trusts her. You don't have her resume. You don't do everything she does or has done. You don't do everything she's accomplished without having the trust of the company. But they've never given her the trust to let her win the big one. Because I felt this way so many times before, and I'm kind of used to it. I'm going to tell you guys, and I apologize if it feels like I'm going a lot because, like I said, there's a lot on my mind when it comes to this match. But when Bianca won with the KOD tonight, I was hoping Sasha would at least kick out of one of them, right? At least have one near fall with the KOD, because I was pretty sure Bianca was gonna win. As a Sasha fan, I wanted to believe in my heart of hearts that she was gonna retain, but I also knew that, Bianca's the favorite, and there's a 99% chance that she's most likely going to win because this is the way WWE likes to book their new stars, getting them these wins on the biggest stage, right? And for Sasha, it was about main eventing and making history and adding another legacy defining match on her resume. I felt this way so many times before that I'm kind of used to it because when Bianca won, this was my reaction. One, two, three. Right away, I didn't go like crap or oh my gosh. In my mind, I'm just like, all right, people are probably gonna be texting me and commenting on the review like 0-6. I told you so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because a lot of you are casual idiots and don't understand that this means so much more than a WrestleMania record. But legit, I just folded my arms and I was like, okay, okay. Because I prepared myself for this. I knew that Bianca was most likely going to win. I gave myself hope as a Sasha fan that maybe they would do something different and that they would do what I have been saying now for the last 6 months and wait till SummerSlam because the pressure's on Bianca now. And we'll talk about Bianca for in a second, right? I want to focus on Sasha because, like I said, I don't want to confuse you guys. But I wasn't surprised. I was mad. I was angry. I was super happy for Bianca Belair because you guys know I am a Bianca Belair fan. But I was also very disappointed and angry as a Sasha fan that here we are again. Here we are again. Because we've gone through this so many times of big matches where Sasha has put it all on the line, giving a classic, and she hasn't gotten the W. Like, you look at WWE playlists, you look at Sasha's greatest matches. A lot of those matches are matches she lost. WrestleMania 32, she should have won that match, right? WrestleMania 33, that was Bayley's moment, so I'm not mad about that. But WrestleMania 34, Sasha wasn't even on the card. She was in the Battle Royal. WrestleMania 35, right? She lost the tag team title match with Bayley. They should have never lost that match to the Iconics. That was a horrible decision. That's two WrestleMania matches that Sasha should have won easily. And if Sasha had won those matches, I wouldn't even be talking about her losing to Bianca. It wouldn't matter. Is the fact that she's now 0-6, and now and all of us, not just me, but everyone who's a fan of Sasha, including Sasha herself, now has to listen to that bullcrap for the next year about, oh, you're 0-6. Are you finally going to get the dub this year? It's just like, really? Like, are you guys so stuck with your agenda? Or you're just so stuck with being right and being an idiot that you see this is not about a WrestleMania record? It's not. And of course, it does have some meaning, but the meaning of the match itself transcends Sasha's WrestleMania record at this point. Because there's a video, it's floating around Twitter. I retweeted it. There's a video of Sasha Banks after the match. Sasha is on, because she knows that the cameras were pointed at Bianca. Sasha's on the outside of the ring, recovering by the barricade, and she's just smiling. She's smiling. Remember, she's supposed to be in character right now. She just lost her SmackDown Women's Championship. But she's smiling because she's happy of what she just did, putting on one of the greatest WrestleMania main events of all time, especially for the woman. Putting on, the match that Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte should have put on a couple years ago. She's just sitting there smiling and happy that she was able to make Bianca Belair look like a complete superstar. There is nobody else in that company that could have brought Bianca Belair to that match tonight. As great as Bayley is, right? As great as Asuka is, you could talk about Charlotte and Becky and whoever you want. There is nobody else in that company that could bring Bianca to that match tonight. Nobody. And Sasha knows that. She knows that, yes, there's going to be haters on Twitter talking about how she's 0-6. But this is not about winning and losing. This is more about the business. This is more about making history. This is about more paving the way for future superstars to go and do what she did tonight. That match tonight was better than Asuka and Charlotte at WrestleMania 34. It was better than Ronda and Becky and Charlotte main eventing. That was the women's main event that we should have got a couple years ago. Because, you don't see people talk about Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda. And that match was 2 years ago. People don't talk about it. What people talk about is the ending. Becky holding up the two women's championship belts to end WrestleMania with the pyro. People talk about the moment of Becky winning. They don't talk about the match. The match was anything special. It was a disappointment. But people are going to talk about this match for years. People are already trying to compare. Is this Sasha's greatest match ever? I will, I will always most likely think that Sasha's best match ever was the match against Bayley at Brooklyn. But still, that doesn't mean that this match isn't in the conversation. It's probably already in her top five. This match was fantastic. Everything about this was great. And the thing about it is, we knew this match was going to be great. Even though the story to get here, the road for us to get here was horrific. With the Reginald and the tag title chase, right? And WWE not giving them enough time. WWE would only give them about 5 minutes on SmackDown to cut a promo or Bianca to have a smart match with somebody, and whatever. But still, for them to go out, especially in the main event, and do what they did tonight, it was absolutely tremendous. Tremendous. Bianca is a made star now, and that's what I was talking about. Even if Sasha won, like I still believe she should have won. I am not gonna give that up. In the end of the day, even if Sasha had won that match, Bianca was gonna come out of that match looking like a star because that's what was Sasha's main goal. Sasha's two main goals was the main event WrestleMania and to make Bianca look like a absolute superstar, the future of the women's division, and that's what Sasha did tonight. And you can't take that away from her. If you are a casual that is sitting on Twitter or social media or in my comment section talking about Sasha being 0-6, you need to get a life. For real. Sure, yes, you are right. Bianca got the win. I will stay to this day. I will make a video probably in the next week or so about how we could have done Sasha better as SmackDown Women's Champion. Right? But, you know, even though you were right, this match means so much more than that stupid WrestleMania record that you guys hold on to. Because that's the only thing you guys can bring up when it comes to Sasha Banks. That's the only thing negative that you could really say about her is the way she's booked sometimes and the fact that she's never won a WrestleMania match. She's 0-6. But you can't take away that she's one of the all-time greats. You can't take away that she's the greatest performer in the history of the women's division. I feel like that is undisputed now. Look at the track record, especially the matches she lost. The match against Brooklyn with Bayley. The Iron Man match with Bayley. The match at Hell in a Cell with Bayley. Her matches with Asuka. No matter if it was the Raw after Royal Rumble 2019. No matter if it was, or not 2019, 2018, my bad. Or the matches with Asuka at, SummerSlam last year. Or Extreme Rules, the horror show. Or Survivor Series of last year. Right? The matches with Charlotte, where she should have won at SummerSlam 2016. Or Roadblock, or Hell in a Cell. The matches with Becky, right? The Hell in a Cell match from 2019, or the Clash of Champions match. And there's so many others. And now she has a legacy-defining match. This is a match that people are going to talk about for years to come. And the thing about it is, the match only went about 20 minutes. They could have easily gone another 5 or 10 if they wanted. I wanted the match to go longer. But the thing about it is, they told the story they needed to. And Sasha Banks proves once again that she's the best in the world. You can talk all you want about how she's 0-6. She's going to go to sleep tonight. She probably already is sleeping right now. I'm recording this at 3 a.m. She's going to sleep up and wake up tomorrow and still think she's the best. She may not be SmackDown Women's Champion anymore, and that's disappointing because I feel like they could have done so much more with Sasha as champion. But still, she's going to go to bed tonight, or she's going to wake up tomorrow thinking, I'm the best. I made history. I made a moment that's going to be remembered till the end of time. Sasha will get that WrestleMania victory, hopefully next year. And it stinks that it may be until her 7th WrestleMania that one of the greatest of all time finally gets a WrestleMania victory. But still, that's not what this is about. So for all those idiots that want to bring up the WrestleMania record, sure, yes, you can. You were right. But this means so much more from a legacy standpoint and the future of women's wrestling. It's that at the end of the day, 10, 20, 30 years from now, people aren't going to be talking about how, this match led to Sasha being at 0-6 at WrestleMania. People are not going to talk about that. People are going to talk about how this paved the way for others. This is going to be on Sasha Bianca's legacy. This was easily Bianca's best match ever, right? You know, you take any of Bianca's NXT matches. This match will tear through it like butter. Like, I really don't know what else to say, really. I don't. You know, this was easy Bianca's best match. This was one of Sasha's top five matches, and it's getting harder and harder to put matches in Sasha's top five because she puts out classics. Sasha has been on this run since she came back in 2019, when she came back after her 4 month hiatus. From the night after SummerSlam all the way to now, the last year and a half, she has been on another level. No matter if it was matches against Becky or Asuka or Bayley or Bianca or even Carmella, she has just been on such a high level where nobody can touch her. From everything, from her feud with Becky to COVID to being her and Bayley were the faces of the company during the early stages of them being in the performance center during the early days of COVID, all the way till now. And even though I wish she got a longer reign and I wish she was booked better as champion, you can't ignore the run that Sasha's gone on. And I don't know what happens from here. Clearly, WWE's going to want to do a rematch with Bianca and Sasha, most likely for Money in the Bank. But, I'm not saying I don't want to see the match. I just don't want to see Sasha lose again. Because I don't see Sasha regaining the title, at least not right now. Maybe later in the year, Sasha regains the title. Maybe at SummerSlam or at some point in the fall. I don't know. Because I don't know if Bianca's going to hold that title all year. I don't think Bianca's ready for that, right? But we'll see. Sasha, she could be taking a break if she wants to. She's earned it. But I know how much she loves wrestling. If she doesn't have, like, The Mandalorian Season 3 to film on or something else coming up, I don't see why Sasha would want to take a break. Especially with the touring schedule. She's been on record saying that, she loves WWE's touring schedule right now, especially with COVID. She doesn't have to wrestle 5 times a week. She only has to worry about wrestling once or twice. And she's in the best shape of her life. And she proved that with the quality match she gave tonight. So we'll see what's next for Sasha. Like I said, I'm disappointed that she lost, and I hate that I'm going to have to deal with the casuals. But she once again proved tonight that she is, in my opinion, the GOAT. I feel like to many others, she proved that she is, arguably or almost undisputedly the best performer of her generation, especially when it comes to the women. Especially, you see everybody from Kyle O'Reilly to Indy Hartwell to Mick Foley to so many legends tweeting about that match tonight and how great Sasha is, even in defeat. And I haven't even talked about the match yet. I'm just talking about, the booking and what I think about this match. And talk about Bianca. You guys know I am a Bianca Belair fan. She's one of my favorites. But of course, whenever she goes up against Sasha, I'm going to pick Sasha every single time and twice on Sundays. But I said Bianca wasn't ready because Bianca had not been booked correctly. WWE had not done a good job of portraying Bianca, especially as a babyface these last couple months. It was more that, they were strapping this rocket to Bianca and then just zooming her to the top. With the Royal Rumble win and everything like that. But now the real struggle begins for Bianca. Because sure, you guys got what you wanted. She got the WrestleMania win, right? Most likely, we'll probably see the same thing tomorrow night with Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley will most likely defeat Asuka, even though Ripley's kind of the heel. But still, if Ripley, wins, you have two of the next stars, Bianca and Rhea Ripley, now as your new champions on Raw and SmackDown. So what do? Well, now the work begins. You guys got what you wanted, right? Bianca's champion. I said they should have saved this moment for SummerSlam, but they did tonight. So it is what it is. There's nothing we can do anymore. We can't change the past. So now the real work begins for Bianca. Now you got to be a dominant champion. Because we've seen how WWE has booked some of their best champions in the past. I'll say it again. Becky's 1 year as Raw Women's Champion was awful. It was not a good reign. People look at it as the greatest Raw Women's Championship reign of all time just because she held the title for a year. But the reign wasn't good outside of the matches with Sasha and Asuka. right? Charlotte, I ask this question all the time. Charlotte's an 11-time champion, and how many great reigns has he had? I ask you guys all the time. What was Charlotte's most iconic reign out of the 11 she's had on the main roster? And still to this day, there's no concrete answer. Bailey had a great reign because she had Sasha by her side. And plus, everyone knew that was building up to the Sasha and Bailey feud. Even though, personally, Sasha versus Bailey should have happened tonight instead of Sasha versus Bianca. Sasha versus Bianca should have been saved for SummerSlam. But it is what it is. And Asuka, who I think is most likely losing her title tomorrow night to Rhea Ripley, Asuka has had a horrific reign as Rollins champion. And that's Asuka. We're talking about Asuka and Sasha Banks, two of the best of all time who have been booked terribly as world champions over the last half year. And here's Bianca now, the rookie, right? She now has all this pressure. Now she has the pressure of being the top champion on SmackDown. That's a lot of pressure to deal with. So now the real work begins. It's one thing to win a championship, but it's another to hold it. And Bianca's legacy will be defined on what she does as SmackDown Women's Champion as long as she holds it. I do think she'll most likely hold on to that title at least SummerSlam. Maybe there they do a rematch with Sasha if they want. I don't know. Maybe Becky's on SmackDown by then, and then we get Becky versus Bianca, or maybe Ronda Rousey's back. Who knows? There's a lot of things they can do, but now you guys got what you want. You guys got what you want. Now Bianca needs to be booked well as SmackDown Women's Champion. She needs credible feuds. She needs to perform like a champion. She got carried by Sasha tonight. Bianca did her thing, but we all know that was Sasha. Sasha was the one who carried that match tonight. That's why so many people are talking about Sasha and how great she is. Now, no matter who Bianca faces, she's the champ now. It's on her to deliver. You can't be getting carried in matches when you're the champ. When John Cena was WWE champion, everyone knew he wasn't the greatest wrestler in the world. But he was WWE's top star. And the reason why they called John Cena Big Match John is because he always stepped up whenever the championship was on the line. He always delivered. And it's why he's one of the all-time greats. And arguably the greatest WWE champion of all time. The only person you could say that maybe is better than him is maybe either Stone Cold or Hulk Hogan or Bruno Sammartino. But we all know how great Cena is. So now it's up to Bianca. Now you got to step up and defend that title every month for as long as she holds it. No matter if it's 4 months, 8 months, a year. Now you got to step up and prove to everybody that Sasha putting you over was worth it. Because you made all this history tonight. And now all the eyes are going to be on you, Bianca. So no matter who you're going up against, no matter if it's a legend like one of the four horsewomen or it's just a normal title match, a match where everyone knows you're going to retain, like against Carmella. Because when Sasha faced off Carmella, we all knew Sasha was going to win. But the matches were still great because that's what it means to be a champion. You got to put on some of the best matches. Bianca now has that pressure on her. Can she deliver when she's going up against, a Natalia or a Ruby Riott or a Carmella in a championship match on a B-level pay-per-view like Backlash or Payback or something like that? That's the key now. You got the moment. You got the title. Now show us what you got, Bianca. I love Bianca. I feel like she is up for the challenge. Even though I will keep saying that I feel like they'd be rushed this. But still, I'm happy for Bianca. Seeing her, celebrate with Montez Ford, right? Her husband. Seeing her celebrate with her parents who were at ringside, man. And the emotion that was on her face. I'm happy for her. I hate that Sasha lost, but I am truly happy for Bianca. Let's just hope now that she is champion, right? Now that she is champion, now the real work begins. Show us that you were worth the hype. Because you got put over by one of the all-time greats in Sasha Banks tonight. Now the pressure begins. Now it begins, truly. And now you got to step up. Because if Bianca, if you are the next generation, right? If you are going to be the one to lead this company for the next decade, you got to show us it now. Or Vince will take that title and give it right back to Sasha or Bailey or Becky when she comes back or Charlotte or whoever. Because we know Vince has no problem giving that title back to the people he trusts. So now you've earned it. You've earned the title. Now the real work begins, and it's really that simple at the end of the day. Really that simple. I'm happy for Bianca, but let's just hope it's worth it. All right. So anyway, let's get into the match. So Bianca and Sasha before the match, we saw that Bianca was actually crying. You know, Bianca was actually crying, and Sasha, she was trying not to cry, but I feel like Bianca's emotion was having an impact on Sasha. But you could see because the crowd was chanting EST, let's go Sasha, EST. So that was really cool to see. And you knew these two were making history. So they got into a shoving match, right? And then they started running the ropes and trading counters. Sasha hit the first strikes of the match. All right, she sent Bianca out of the ring and hung her up on the top rope. Bianca caught Sasha with a caught Banks to counter a crossbody and pressed her above her head, and then she walked up the stairs and threw her in the ring. This was really cool, because Bianca could have easily just threw Sasha onto the ground floor or into the steel steps. She actually pressed her above her head and carried her over, walked up the steps, and then threw her into the ring. Then, as Bianca got back in the ring, Sasha met her with a dropkick for a quick 2 count. Sasha then tried to use Bianca's braid against her, but it backfired when the EST yanked her into the ring post. Sasha would go after that braid multiple times throughout the match. It was kind of a very trend. It was a theme here. All right. So then Bianca put Sasha up into the vertical suplex and bounced her off the rope a couple times. But Bianca struggled to keep her up, but then she was able to bring her down in the pressure show of power. One of the things that was so great about this was it was Bianca's power versus Sasha's wrestling IQ, her skill set. Because we all know how great Sasha is as countering. So Sasha was able to counter Bianca's power in a lot of ways. So then Bianca built up some more momentum, hit a standing shooting star press. Then she hit Sasha with a glam slam. Then she went for the 450, but Sasha got the knees up. Bianca then hit 2 power bombs before Sasha counted the third one. Bianca then kicked out of Sasha's frog splash, and then Sasha went after the arm. She shoved Bianca into the steel steps to start her up for the bake statement. And then I was kind of hoping that this would be like the finish of the match, right? Sasha using Bianca's braid to lock in the bank statement, and then Bianca just tapping out. So Bianca still looks strong in the feet instead of tapping out clean. But Bianca, after some time, was able to reach the ropes. And I love the facial expressions from both ladies. They were giving it their all here. So Sasha went for a Meteora in the corner, but then Bianca finally was able to hit the 450 splash. But then with Sasha kicked out, Bianca's face, that's going to be meme material, man. It's Bianca's face, man. Oh, her eyes lit up. She could not believe it, right? And this was the spot where everyone's going to be talking about. So here at the end, Sasha kept countering out of Bianca's KOD, trying to go for the bank statement. But then the huge spot, Bianca was able to get Sasha down. And then Bianca takes her braid, uses it as a belt, and nails Sasha in the midsection. One of the most brutal spots I've ever seen. Brutal. After the match, you could see there's a huge cut on Sasha's midsection. She is bleeding. That is Bianca's braid. It's so hard, especially with the amount of power she winds it up. She winded it up like a baseball bat. Bianca's braid is basically a kendo stick. It's unfair because Bianca, her braid is an actual weapon. So she takes it like a candlestick and she whips Sasha. That's something that you could hear throughout the entire arena, probably throughout the entire state. Huge. And then Bianca was finally able to hit the KOD on Sasha for the win. Michael Cole on commentary actually botched it. He actually thought that Sasha kicked out, you know. So I don't know if that was a miscommunication on his part, if he thought Sasha was going to kick out, if that was in the plans, or he just was too excited there. Like I said, I wish Sasha kicked out the KOD once. It would have just added like just one more special moment because I love finisher kickouts. I love when people kick out of finishers, especially in those big matches. All right, but either way, Sasha didn't kick out. Bianca got it in, and she got the win, and the crowd absolutely erupted. You can see Bianca crying, and she held up the title in celebration. Sasha was smiling on the outside, like I said. You guys can find that video trending all over social media. And what was a spectacular, spectacular main event. Bianca got the epic pyro as WrestleMania ended, and of course, everybody goes home happy. She celebrated with her husband and her family. So you gotta be happy for Bianca, all right? I gotta be happy for Sasha. They made history tonight. I just wish I just wish we didn't have to deal with the 0-6. That's all. That's really my only big problem here. But either way, man, it was absolutely fantastic. It was worthy of the main event spot. What's gonna be interesting? Will Edge, Roman, and Bryan be able to top that in the main event tomorrow night? That's gonna be interesting, right? Because Sasha versus Bianca was easily the best thing on the card. There's nothing to really debate here. As great as Rollins and Cesaro was, as great as Drew versus Lashley was, as great as Bad Bunny was in his debut, this was easily the main event. It was easily the best match on the show. It did everything it needed to do, man. And like I said, we'll see. We'll see if they're setting up the rematch for Sasha and Bianca for Money in the Bank. I don't know yet. It's too early to tell. We'll have to wait for SmackDown this week to see what the plan is, right? But congratulations to Bianca. No matter what, man, I'm happy for her. I'm just hope she's ready because now the real test begins. You've reached the top. You got put over on the grandest stage in the mall. There is no bigger moment than this. This is something Bianca's gonna remember for the rest of her career, and I'm just hope she's ready because now here comes the real work. And I'm rooting for her. I really am. But just like I said, I'm gonna hold Bianca accountable because you guys wanted this. You guys wanted this, right? You guys said Bianca has to win. She won. Now prove to me that you can go out and be the face of the division like Sasha, like Bailey, like Becky, like Charlotte, like Asuka, like all the past SmackDown Women's Champions before you. All those names I listed, those are the only people who have held the SmackDown Women's Championship since 2018, since Carmella lost the title. All those names I just listed are future Hall of Famers and some of the greatest female superstars of all time. Let's see if Bianca can add her way to that list. All right. Like, she has the potential. She's already off to a great start. She got her moment tonight. Now the real work begins. Super happy for Bianca, right? Happy for Sasha. They absolutely killed it. Fantastic main event. Absolutely spectacular. Now, let's see what they got in plan for us next. You know, I want to say thank you to Sasha for always being incredible, for always being the GOAT, right? I want to thank Bianca for going out there and putting on a legacy defining match. This is a match that's going to be remembered for a long, long, long time. Easily one of the best, WrestleMania, main events I've seen, and definitely one of the best women's WrestleMania matches. Maybe arguably ever. If you really think about it, right? But we'll talk about that at a later date. The legacy of this match and comparing it to other great women's matches in WrestleMania history. But still, you know, what a crazy night. Night one of WrestleMania was a success. It was so great to have fans back, and we got one more night tomorrow. We got one more night tomorrow, man. Like I said, I'm hyped for night two. I really am. There's a lot of great matches on this card. Of course, I'm excited for the triple threat with Roman, Edge, and DB. Biggie versus Apollo. I feel like that has a chance to be an under the radar match. KO versus Sami Zayn. That could be a shoe stealer. Those two fight forever. Uh, there's a lot. Randy Orton versus the Fiend. We'll see if they have anything for that. But either way, man, night two. On paper it looks better than night one, but night one was surprisingly good. So we'll see if they can keep it up. And I hope they stay with this 2 night structure, bro. I really do. I feel like it's beneficial to everybody. Everybody to keep it at, 2 nights. Because imagine if you did 14 matches, tonight, you would have had to start the show at 7, and then the show would have went on till almost 12. And I feel like nobody wants to deal with that. But, either way, that's about all I got for you guys today, man. We'll talk about that more tomorrow on the night 2 review. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so very much for joining me on the podcast tonight. My throat is absolutely killing. I can't believe I actually was able to go almost 2 hours, with this throat problem. But either way, thank you guys for everything, man. I will be right back here tomorrow night for night 2 of our WrestleMania coverage. So make sure you guys are back here on the podcast for all of that. If you guys enjoyed the review, make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel by hitting the bell next to my name, Fitzmonk TV, so you guys are notified every time I post a new video. Make sure to also follow me down on social media. The links are in the description down below. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys for everything. I'll see you guys later. Stay safe and healthy, y'all. Peace.